Welcome to my so-called card life, an inside look at the life of a low-end card reseller, brought to you by JC3 Cards and Collectibles, a premier reseller of trading cards available today on eBay, Collects, and whatnot. Whether you're looking to fill out that new set or just rekindle memories with one of your favorite players from your favorite teams, let JC3 Cards and Collectibles help you find that card you're looking for and provide fast, secure delivery straight to your door. Welcome back, everyone, to my so-called card life. Episode 4 now. 4 weeks of episodes, and we're rolling along, sharing with you the life of a low-end card seller. This week was, it was a handful, I guess I would say. The old summer cold hit the household, and we've been under the weather for the week, and it's really it really has an impact when you are running your own business. So I've been down, I guess, about a week and a half now. I've been fighting with this cold or sinus infection, and missed some work time this week, and it actually boiled over to a point where I really couldn't just sit at my computer and list. I got my sold items out and did my packing and shipping, but just didn't have it in me to run hundreds of cards through the scanner and get them all matched and keep up with my normal pace of listing. And that's a challenge when you're a small business owner like we are here. The family helps out, but I do 99.9% of all the listings. So when I go down, the listing numbers lag behind, and as you sell more, those numbers come down. And as we know, the algorithm wants to see new listings every day. So worked through some relisting of some ended auctions to keep some things going out there. Kind of got a handful of cards out every day, but typically I am, I'd love to get 50 to 100 cards out every day at a minimum. And I struggled to do that this week. So that then affects the algorithm negatively. I believe it doesn't push your products out there as much, but still had solid sales for the week. I really can't complain on how it was going. So I always tell folks it really doesn't matter how many cards a day you are listing, other than the fact that if you're trying to grow, you need to list more than you sell. But to keep yourself relevant in the algorithm, I think just the fact that you list something new every day, even if it's just a handful, keeps you relevant in that algorithm and keeps your business moving forward. Excuse me there, struggling with the voice a little bit as I recover from this illness. But speaking of listing, we tried out some new options this week. We talked last week about how we had invested in some new hardware from a company called Heystack. We had bought the Heystack One imaging device. This week we spent some time checking out their software as well. They've got a platform to match your images to their card database and direct list to eBay. And that is for like a buy it now type of listing. They also have some breaker software that is really interesting. I have not ventured into that market yet or live selling, but I think there's some really good possibilities with their software there. But I did take some time to try out some buy it now listings with their software. And um, I guess my early return is I think there's some more work to be done, but I see some definite possibilities there. If you're interested in trying it, you can sign up for an account with Heystack at heystack.tech. That's HEYSTACK.TECH. And signing up for an account, I believe, gets you 500 free scans or matches. I guess we shouldn't say scans. We should say matches through their software. I don't see any information about their subscription plans yet, but I have run a few cards through that. Their matching seems pretty accurate, although I will say they don't automatically match the card for you. It gives you a list of possible matches. And I think they're kind of ranked on probability. But they do, what I did notice right off the top is they do a really good job of listing all the different parallels of the card in the actual names, which is great. But then you pick from a pick list which card you want to match it to. And then it works pretty much just like any other platform from there. Set your price, list to eBay. Would like to see them expand to other marketplace platforms as well. You know, as I compare it to my primary listing tool in Card Dealer Pro, it's tough to match up with Card Dealer Pro when I can list to eBay, whatnot, and collects in a single transaction essentially. Heystack is only available to list to eBay at this time, but it's good to try out some different options at times and see what else is out there because you always want to keep some options open. One of the worst things you can do in business, I think, is always do what you've always done and not look to um, improve your processes, improve your technology. Businesses that settle for what's worked in the past typically tend to fail in the future at some point, right? Or they lag behind. So I always like to look at different options out there, and I think Haystack is a good example of an up and coming technology that I'll want to keep looking at as we go forward and see if we reach a point where they may be able to take over as my number one imaging tool. I definitely love the hardware. I talked about that last week again. It's a one and done. I don't have to, retake pictures looking for that perfect angle. It does perfect imaging. I've yet to find an image I didn't like coming out of it. And I like the simplicity of it, I like the portability of it. But looking at the software, I think I still have some desires for the software, and I'll certainly be sharing some feedback with the engineers on that to see what we can do. But if you're in the market, it's worth taking a look at. So, what else did we have going on this week? Well, how about a win of the week? We had our first Whatnot Buy It Now sale. I was beginning to get worried that with all the listing I was putting on Whatnot now with Card Dealer Pro, because I had not had any live shows on Whatnot, I had made the comment to the Dollar Box a few times that I don't know that I'm going to get much of a footprint on Whatnot Buy It Now marketplace without doing any live selling. And we had a little debate back and forth about that. And then lo and behold, I had a nice sale come up this week and I broke the seal on Whatnot Marketplace. Sold a nice 2022 Panini Prism stained glass Chase Elliott NASCAR card and made that sale for $19. That's considered a case hit type of card. So really nice sale there. Good way to break things open there. I typically don't list everything to the Whatnot marketplace. I have been listing cards that are a little bit higher starting point on Whatnot with the intent that I'm basically building up inventory for my first live show because they do make it really easy to take your buy it now interview, just check a box and list it in and prep it into a live show. So that was really my intent. And if I sell some cards along the way from there, great. But really, I'm curating what I want to sell in some live selling events. So to see this card go was great. One of the things you want to keep in mind with the Whatnot marketplace for their buy it now listings is currently they do not offer a plain white envelope service. Everything has to ship in like Ground Advantage. So the the buyer typically can pay for that. I have mine set up for the buyer to pay that. But if you're going to pay $4 to $5 shipping, you're not gonna buy that for $1.99 card, right? So my thought process is I need some better cards listed on Whatnot if I expect a buyer to spend that little extra on shipping. It's great for the buyer in the end. They're getting more secure, better service, but it's it makes it look very different when you're looking at comps for cards, right? Um, you're paying you're paying, let's see, in this case you're paying 23 $24 versus 19 with free shipping, right? So keep that in mind as you're working on your business model and figuring out what works for you. um, I just can't imagine putting $1.99 card on Whatnot, and I don't think a lot of that goes into live selling anyway. And that's kind of the way I looked at it as I started building that inventory as well. But it was really great to get that first sale on Whatnot and see that, hey, you can make some sales out there even if you are not doing live selling yet. Now let's talk about something on the other end of the spectrum. Something a little frustrating that I think many of us have probably gone through as buyers, and something I think we all owe it to our prospective customers to think about as a seller, and that is how we ship our items. Um, in this case, I had sourced some items for my brother, my older brother. He's a sports fan. He does a little bit of collecting, but he doesn't really know. He doesn't know the hobby and the sourcing part of it very well. And he knows that I participate in that business, so he often asks me if I can find a card or two here or there. And I set out and found a couple rookie cards of our current Milwaukee Brewers for him. And as I did that and ordered those, I was waiting for those cards to arrive. And lo and behold, one of them did end up being delayed, and a couple weeks went by, and eventually I received a notice in my mailbox saying we have a first class letter for you, and we will gladly deliver that as soon as 53 cents postage due is paid. Well, why would there be postage due on a single card purchased? Well, it really comes down to packaging and the terms and conditions of the United States Postal Service and eBay in the contract they put together. There are size restrictions to anything that goes eBay standard envelope. That includes height, length, width, and thickness. And typically, that's not too much of an issue. Where it does get tricky is there is a requirement for flexibility. And that flexibility requirement is not clearly defined. And nobody knows exactly how flexible is flexible. But what it really means is When that envelope goes through the sorting machines, it better flow through there without any issues. If that envelope jams or doesn't feed for any reason, your envelope is going to be kicked out, thrown in a bin, and assessed for additional postage because it had to be um, hand processed, basically. So I ordered these cards from a pretty well known dealer in the Las Vegas area, and I thought to myself, "Gosh, for an organization that ships so many cards, I'm surprised I would have this issue for a single card from somebody that has been in this business for a while." So I put my 53 cents in the mailbox with the notification, and 2 days later, my card was delivered. And what I found was my single rookie base card for, I think it was like Andrew Monasterio, somebody like that. Actually, I should have the card handy here. Sure enough, it's an Isaac Collins rookie card, 2025 Raywave Isaac Collins rookie card. That's what my brother has me shop for. Um, so nothing special about the card. Standard thickness, standard 2.5 by 3.5 size. Well under the 1 ounce limit. So this was packaged in a sleeve and a top loader, which really no issue with either of those. We ship thousands of cards in that same setup. The envelope selected was a number 6 envelope, which is a shorter envelope that is really not much bigger than the card. And I used these envelopes when I first started selling because I thought, why would you have any additional space in an envelope? So a number 6, I believe, is about 6 inches long. And you've got your 3.5 inch card, right? However, when you put a single card in a top loader in a number 6 envelope, it is significantly more rigid because there's not much extra space in that envelope. Now, think about your other options. If you use a number 10 envelope, which is approximately 10 inches long, you've got over half of that envelope that is now empty. And you can literally bend that envelope in half without affecting the card that is within the envelope. So if you think about how these sorting systems work, there's typically rollers and belts, and they grab a single end of the envelope, feed it in, and often have to bend that envelope through a series of curves through that sorting system. When you think about the flexibility requirement, they're talking about the ability for that card to navigate that. So where I got hit with the extra 53 cents postage due is with that card in a number 6. It started to feed in and immediately tried to make a turn on that roller or belt and hits that top loader, and it must have jammed in the machine. So it gets grabbed, pulled out, thrown in a bin, and say, if the buyer wants this, if the receiver wants this, they need to pay the extra postage. Now, here's the tricky thing. You can send 1,000 cards in a number 6 envelope with this same setup, a sleeve and a top loader, and the majority of them will go through. That's just the fact of the matter. Not every card is going to be an issue. Where I contend we can be better as sellers is in our risk management and the experience we give customers. I would say that your risk of causing a jam and having a delivery issue in a number 10 is exponentially smaller than your risk in a number 6 envelope. the cost difference between a number 6 and a number 10 envelope, in my opinion, is very negligible over the course of a year. So why would you not ship your items in a number 10, knowing that you have now provided your customer the best opportunity to get their envelope without any additional, their item without any additional problems? It just seems to me that that would be a trade-off you would want to make. That's a business decision we made. We started off shipping everything in a number 6 because intuitively it seemed like the right thing to do. That's the size of envelope that fits a card, right? But we would occasionally get cards returned saying not machinable, or we would have buyers message us saying, hey, this arrived, but it had postage due, and I'd have to refund the buyer's partial order amount. So we made the change to a number 10, and we have little to no issues since we've done that. And to me, it's just about managing the risk. Yes, you can ship out plenty of things in a number 6 and have no issues. But I almost guarantee you will have some issues. And you will have more issues than if you ship in a number 10. The other times that I get things back with postage due is when cards are overprotected. I will get PWE deliveries with card shields and stuff like that inside. And then it becomes, again, either not flexible enough or too thick. Too thick. I've had a few cards delivered in mag cases, which are definitely too thick and definitely not flexible enough. And believe it or not, I've had that happen twice. One delivered without any additional requirement, which I consider a miracle, and the other one did deliver with postage due. And to me, that it was for $1.99 card. Something like that does not need to ship in a mag case, right? Like it's a low dollar amount with little risk of damage. Um, and if it does get damaged, it's an easy refund for a low dollar item that is not a huge loss for anybody, right? So there's no need to overprotect your low dollar items. But ultimately, our goal is to get our item quickly, safely, securely in the hands of our customers. And to do that, we need to assess what gives us the greatest risk. Or let me flip that around. What gives us the lowest risk of an issue and the greatest chance of successfully delivering that item without issue? Well, I want to tell you how much we appreciate you joining us here on the podcast. I want to give you one task for me. I would ask you, if you have one shipping issue that drives you crazy, or what's the biggest issue you come across, why don't you post it in the comments below? Let us know some of the troubles you run into, and let's talk as a community about how we can address some of those. And if you're joining us today and you're enjoying this content, I would ask take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that very much. So, in our continuing series, we've talked every week about some of the components of being a first time seller and how do you get set up. So, we talked about you're starting with some inventory you had saved up from a collection. You spent some time determining what platforms you want to use. We talked last week a little bit about imaging those cards to get them listed on your platform. I thought we would talk a couple minutes this week about how do you determine your pricing structure for your items. And there are a few different schools of thought on this, and there are a lot of resources that are available for sellers to really create their price points on their items. I think the easiest way to get started with this is really just looking at market prices and comps or comparables. Um, all the platforms really do a great job of giving you visibility to recent sales, and you can see what that item has been selling for or not selling for. And if it's not selling, you can see what are people listing it at and make a decision from there on where you want to price your item. Do you want to be a discount seller and do you want to race to the bottom and try and be the first to move that item because you're discounting it so heavily? Do you want to sit right at market value and see what happens there? Or do you want to take a premium position and try to get higher margins on that and price above the market? Um, the comps make that pretty easy, and they're all readily available on your phone. You can see that at a card show, any card show you go to today. You will see someone looking at their phone, looking up comps, using it as part of a negotiation. So that's one of the great things about technology today, is that it has made information readily available. Now, just knowing what those comps are is only part of the story. Only you can decide what are the right margins for your business. Do you need to consistently be above comps? What's your cost structure going into it? What kind of purchasing have you been doing on supplies? What kinds of fees are you paying on your selling platform? And maybe most important, how much did it cost you to source those items in the first place? Because if you are selling for less than you paid for it, that is a business that is not going to last very long. So all of those things have to go into your decision. You can't just take comps and say that's where I'm going to be. You need to figure out what's your cost structure. And then a lot of the time we spend as resellers is if we know what the market price is for an item, how can we minimize our costs going into that so we can keep more of that margin, right? That's why you see conversations about saving a penny on a hundred card sleeves, or buying a case of labels so that you can get those label costs down to a penny a label. All of those pennies add up over the course of time. And then you hear those really tough negotiations at tables sometimes where, buyers are looking to get volume at wholesale prices. And then, we're selling one at a time at retail prices. So that's where those margins really come from, because the market is what the market's going to be. Now, there's a different approach that some sellers take as well, and they just take a pure margin approach. Maybe you're a seller that says, whatever I purchased that item for, I'm just going to sell it for 20% over that price. I don't care what comps are. I don't care about any of that other stuff. I'm just going to price everything at 20, maybe 30% over what I paid for that item. And that's a pretty simplistic model as well. It does require you to keep a little more tabs on what all your sourcing costs are. And that's actually something that I find pretty challenging, especially if I'm at a big show or I'm buying from a lot of different tables. When I get home with that, it's kind of tough to remember what I paid at each table. But I do generally know what I paid overall at a show and where I kind of average out for each card. But here we tend to prefer looking at comps, looking at market values, and assessing the pace at which those items are selling, and then making a decision on, is this a hot mover that I might want to be a little over comps? Or is this something that is not going very often and I might want to be a little under comps just to make sure I'm not sitting on this item for very long? That strategy has worked well for us thus far, and it's our preference. But again, there's no right or wrong way to go about this. It's just about how you want to structure your business. So, hopefully, that gives you a few ideas to kick around as you set up your pricing structure and find out what works for you. That's the beautiful thing about this business is there's no one perfect way for everybody. There's variants that can make sense for each individual business, and we all find our own little tweaks and things that work best for us. Well, that's our show for this week. We hope you found some useful information to take away from our story. I think we're going to give the voice a rest here for a week and continue to rest up and get better. Hopefully, next week we'll come back to you feeling 100% again. We appreciate you joining us to listen to our story here. And until next week, take care of each other, and we'll see you on the other side.